When did we have shared reality in the first place to start with?
The speed of communication that we have now accelerates that much faster and then creates a much more divergent world.
AI has learned too much about how being humans that nowadays humans are forgetting about how to being humans.
Shared reality doesn't need to be a singular reality. Hey guys, in today's conversation, we're going to talk about how, as AI makes software and content systems more personalized, it could break down the concept of a shared reality. Everybody sees something different, everybody experiences a different world. Today, we're going to dive into either side of this conversation. What are the benefits and what are the good sides that comes out of this? What are the negative things that come out of it? So we're each going to take a stance and kind of probe each other and just have a kind of a natural debate amongst friends about what this might affect us, how this might affect us as people.
AI has been disrupting how we think reality, and people have been saying that it's affecting our shared reality a lot. But my question to you is, when did we have shared reality in the first place to start with?
Oh, that's a good question. Shared reality from like a day-to-day experience. I think that starts breaking down the more we can specify what kind of things we have influencing us every single day, right? Like you might see a different recommendation of content online. I might see a different recommendation of content online. So, I mean, if you had to put like a date, a year in it that we were like, okay, this is when shared reality started to break, it's
Mhm.
probably when we started seeing social media come about, right? That would be my like if I had to draw a line in the sand. Okay, this is when shared reality really started diverging in a big way. What do you think?
My question is, I don't think there is a concept called shared reality, anyways. I feel that we have been influenced by load distribution at the start to basically manipulating us to think that we are all in a shared reality, meaning that we had very less number of narratives, less number of news channels to start with. Um, yeah, less sort of like scripts that were influencing us. And every single one of us were essentially hearing to the same thing, and all the thoughts were being same, essentially guided by mass media, me being primarily news channels and mass narratives structured around. That's my take on it.
Right. So, like, essentially, you're arguing that we'd never really had a shared reality. It was just an illusion of shared reality because we had a limited number of information sources to us.
Yes. What I would say is like it was more so constrained being disguised for like a collective consensus.
Yep. Yep. And I see where you're coming from with that standpoint. If you like, if you're a history nerd like I am, there is always an element of the truth of an event is never really captured in a single source of information. When you go and see the history written by the victors versus the people that lost the battles, right? It's a very different kind of narrative that gets told. So, yeah, there's an element of truth to what you're saying, but when I think about shared reality, I think about the fact that it's not necessarily a unified, agreed reality. You and I may have different sense of reality, but I think there's a limit on essentially the number. There's a theoretical limit on the number of shared realities that exist, right?
Hmm.
The problem that maybe is a concern to us now with how technology is influencing this is the speed of divergence of alternate realities increases in a
Mm.
big way. Now, we'll get to this a little bit later, but even the concept of false alternate realities becomes a big concern. Not to say that propaganda realities didn't exist, 100 years ago, pre-internet. It did, it absolutely did, but it's potentially even
It's yeah, its rate of
worse.
spread is yeah, its rate of spread is way faster, and people have negative impacts in terms of how they can influence one propaganda stories and basically influence a collective mindset in terms of how people perceive as reality,
Yeah,
way faster than how it was before.
yeah. Yeah, and that's
That
definitely the devil's stance on this, right? Is that the speed of communication that we have now accelerates that much faster and then creates a much more divergent world.
yeah,
But then I guess the inverse take of it, the angel take, if you will, is that your initial angel take is that we never had it anyway. So the
yeah, yeah,
advent of AI and technology is not making it worse.
yeah.
But the alternate angel
No,
take is that,
we have, what I would say is like we have always had a macro versus like a micro reality.
mm,
Like
mm,
micro reality, it's like specific to you, like
mm,
your realities, your immediate things that you perceive around you and what do you think about it. That's never gonna change, irrespective of what technology comes in and doesn't
mm,
come in.
mm.
But how it influences you and how it influences your thinking is is sort of changing in a way. Meaning, with the expansion of AI, what we see now is like uh, encapsulated mirrors, essentially, of different sort of recommendations that are given to you.
Mm.
Is essentially you wanting to see what you want to see in a more granular level.
Okay.
And what that influences is it's basically it's personalizing you in a manner. And in terms of what content you want to see, what kind of thinking patterns you have, and what kind of narrative you like to see that happens. And whatever you're seeing is essentially you, is what I'm saying.
So what you're saying is that the recommendation systems essentially that we're seeing across social media and news provision, things like that, is essentially tuned to what you want to see or specifically to what you need to see? Because those two things can be very different, right?
There is a nuance to it. Like, we personally know how AI algorithms are being trained and what it is doing now,
Sure.
but that's gonna change. Like, AI algorithms, essentially, what it's doing now is it's influencing a little bit of psychological effects in terms of it'll want to please you as much as it'll want you to satisfy you.
Mm. Mm.
So that's the truth. That's the hard truth.
Yeah, because
But
it's
as
getting reinforced by a positive response
yeah,
on your algorithmic feed. Like we see this with
that's the reason
likes
why
on Instagram.
whatever we ask it, it's gonna praise us first. That's a good idea. That's a good thing. That's a good thought.
Sure,
You
sure.
like always praise you for
Yeah, we've
keeping
all
you hooked.
seen that as the default behavior with like the sycophancy with any of these like chatbots and
Yeah,
Claude
but
models and
like
things like that.
what I would like to say is, take 20 years ago,
Yeah.
if you talk to a person and that person comes at you taking the immediate negative stance that they can have, like say, you going to a person and telling them hi, and you're saying like, no, not gonna have a conversation.
Okay.
What does that bring you, like from a personal level? That's the take with how AI is influencing it on a very, very micro level at each and every conversation. So even one chat is like going to them for the first time and asking it. So when AI responds to you like in a very friendly manner, you expect that anyways, even though you find that like cliched and like, yeah, it's more satisfying than you would want it, but your mind internally probably wants that response.
Yeah, and it's interesting where this starts to become a real concern, right? Is that it starts indexing so heavily on what we want that we start seeing echo chambers, right? It starts also influencing specifically the kinds of uh, data points that we gather from, say, news events, right? That allows us to construct a narrative that essentially supports what it is that we already kind of believe. Now, when I think about it, that kind of reflects at a macro level where you're seeing across the world people are getting a little bit more adversarial and a lot less centrist in their thinking and the way in which they have conversations, and that seems to be something that this kind of feeds, right? So that's my first major concern with it. I guess the other concern that I have with it is almost from like how addictive is a positive experience, right? Like, when was the last time someone, like, if someone gives you a compliment on, oh, that's a really nice shirt you've got on, Vinayak, right? Like, the likelihood of you liking that shirt and wanting to wear that shirt more often is significantly higher than any other shirt in your closet now, right?
Yeah.
Um, or even that style of shirt, you start styling yourself in that way. Now, how does that affect things like we're seeing like AI dating bots? We're seeing a free for all on like the Instagram market for being able to create your own chatbots to interact with, kind of thing. That's my concern, is that we kind of lose that reality of how people actually interact with us, right? Like
Yeah.
if you've tried the AI creator mode or the AI mode in Instagram or WhatsApp, you can basically create a custom persona that you want to interact with. Um, and that to me is kind of scary. Like if I want to take the real devil's take on AI here, that is really scary because I can essentially constantly validate my thinking, validate my ideas, and validate myself, being completely separate from the touchstone of reality. Like if you go back 10 years with
Yeah.
social media, yes, you could still find those pockets of validation and echo chambers, but they essentially had to come from other people. It came from a shared experience. So, but now we're seeing that you can create your own shared experience entirely with a community of AI bots that agree with you. Um, so that's my really big concern and
I
how
don't
it might be
I don't
offensive.
think that's a problem,
Tell me
is
more.
what I'm
Why not?
saying.
Why not?
We have been in echo chambers always, and I don't think that's gonna stop in some way or the other. Like you being part of a 5 member echo chamber versus you being part of a 1 member echo chamber, which is now essentially is nothing different.
But my counter argument to that is that it's not whether we're in an echo chamber or not. That's the concern.
Hmm.
It's the source of that echo chamber is that other, or let's call them semi-organic humans
Hmm.
versus bots that are pretending to be like human or like society, right?
Yeah.
Um,
What
that's the
what
bit
I'm
that I'm trying
trying
to quantify.
Yeah, yeah. I've like you mentioning about social bots and other stuff. I made contents about this previously as well, about
Yeah.
how AI has learned too much about how being humans, that nowadays humans are forgetting about how to being humans, where robots or AIs are being more humans than humans because they know too much of us
Okay.
and they know how to be humans in its essentiality and not cause or bring about total chaos because it knows what kind of patterns we do and bring destruction about ourselves. In a way, they are like personalized psychologists that we have in our pockets that they don't activate our time bombs
Right.
of us not letting us explode.
So are you saying that there are more guardrails because it can actively optimize against negative outcomes?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Which I felt initially when I was using it, like why do you have to restrict this? Why do you have to restrict this? But people usually have been focusing on the negative side effects about how AI can do certain things, how AI can even hire a person to do a job in by hosting it on a job portal website or whatever. But we are also forgetting about how it finds how human does this job. Like humans would have done the same thing. Like humans would post it on a job site and would seek help or guidance from other specialized humans who does jobs better. It mimics us.
Hmm.
It's a very classic biomimicry that we do, that we have done always and we keep doing, irrespective of whether it's an AI or not.
I, I think I see what you mean, right? Like there's always that element of people are going to essentially reach the boundary of being able to provide guardrails, right? Like I think there's two things that you're talking about here. One is like having those conversations with guardrails, optimizing against negative outcomes, but the other side is now, is there actually a negative aspect to doing certain things that previously humans would do, right? In terms
Yep.
of the negative guardrails, I think it comes down to what are the what are the drivers and incentives that a company has when they have a particular chatbot? What are their incentives to implement those guardrails, right? Right now, it's very much Wild West in a sense, where it, like, the only thing we know about the safety guardrails about, say, Anthropic's systems are essentially what they decide to investigate and what guardrails they decide to put in place, right? Likewise for Meta, like it's for all things. It's exactly how we had it for social media and for software prior to this. It's very self-policed in a way, right? So I think there is still a risk there when it's so self-regulated in terms of what guardrails we actually want to see in society, that it comes down to, can I then use these algorithms and use these systems to manipulate what you're thinking, right? The question is, how far can this risk of being manipulated and that
Hmm.
power of suggestion be weaponized in a sense? So that's the concern that I still have. That I agree with you that in like an egalitarian world, if there was this natural boundary where we're like, okay, AI is not going to let us go down that destructive path of thinking and conversation, then yes, it could be more powerful than talking to humans. But I'm not clear what mechanism incentivizes us to actually create in that way.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, like personalized ads, I agree. Like that can be a benefit, um, because we tend to see, or we tend to like what we are usually seeing and usually accustomed to. And if I like anime, and if I get personalized ads regarding anime, that part is good,
Yeah,
and no one is gonna argue about that aspect. But where do we draw the line of because these are all steered essentially by algorithmic patterns that it analyzes from how you sort of navigate around and use certain things, right?
yeah,
But the region where we are not all sure is about where does this manipulation string from? And I'm pretty sure that it strings from a human right now. I'm
sure,
not sure if an AI can instigate such a manipulation
sure, sure,
by itself.
sure. Like
And for
like
what cause?
there's no driving like latent behavior that drives towards manipulation towards a particular outcome. Whereas when we're
All
talking about
these
intelligent
are,
systems, it
what
does.
I'm saying is like all these are human qualities.
Yeah, yeah. So in many ways, it
Betr
is just amplifying.
betrayal, betrayal, guilt, uh, all these are human qualities. And AI, whatsoever you can teach it, you can ask it to mimic that qualities. I'm pretty sure it doesn't have like an intrinsic understanding of what that is.
Sure.
But if you have a human on the other end who has like bunch of AI agents doing things that they want to do, that human could be part of a corporation, that human could be by himself, AI would do it.
Yeah, interesting. So while my concern is more in the AI as a tool, um, can be used to amplify like whatever manipulative angles that a human or a corporation or a system may have. Your counter argument is that at its core, it is much more neutral than anything that individuals can essentially do.
In the future, it can have an ability to take a stance,
Yeah,
but that stance, I would argue that since it has like vast amount of data and it doesn't have like an active brain,
mm.
uh, influenced by immediate like effects that the brain would have by taking a stance on, it's not what AI would take with the amount of data that it has throughout.
Mm.
It'll probably have micro moments just to satisfy us. That satisfaction part, as long as there is a human in the loop, I don't think that's going to vanish. But when an AI is interacting with an AI, again, this is too far-fetched and too in the future. But AI at its core, I don't think there is all these qualities that it would like to adopt and use it.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I don't think it's as far away in the future as we kind of think, right? Like I
Yeah,
don't know whether this will be visible to people outside of say the software engineering world, right? But right now there are a lot of people that are starting to work with agents and sub agents to essentially go solve a particular coding task and have a completely separate agent come in to review the code, set certain standards, things like that, right? Um, I'm very curious to see if that regresses to the mean stupidity of all the coders that have come before it, or whether it's able to essentially cut out the noise and start
Yep.
finding more effective ways of actually building things, right? Like if
Yeah.
in a perfect world you look at optimization algorithms. Back in the day, we would tune optimization systems to whatever we felt works, right? But optimization algorithms help us find like more global optima, um, and reduces the solution space essentially to
Hmm.
this objectively works better or doesn't work better, um, in a sense. So I wonder how the use of AI tools optimizes over time, especially in the coding space, because that's like the area that I'm most
Yeah,
deeply
I feel
immersed in.
that as humans are bounded by physical physical quantities that drive them down. It's like include fatigue,
Mm,
tiredness, all those stuff.
mm,
So you could be in like an excellent parts, like any specialist. And if you're asked to review certain things, you are influenced by how tired you were, what you were doing the previous morning, what you were doing that morning, what food you had, and
mm.
everything influenced in terms of what the duties that you're trying to perform.
You're also
And
influenced by external factors like, for example, like you could see structurally that a certain team wants ownership and control over a certain system.
yep,
They want certain things to be built in certain directions, right?
yeah.
Um, and that can have a long-term career impact for people and things like that.
Hmm.
Uh, so yeah, in that sense, I see where you're coming from. There may
Yeah, what I
be
was trying to say is like AI, I'm not saying that AI is immune to these. What I'm
sure,
trying to say is AI knows patterns about when such things would happen, and hence would either negate the influence of the data that it has on to take a decision on it
mm,
or take that into consideration.
mm,
It's like if you have like thousands of data about a person driving a car, and there's about like hundreds of data where you have a person who's fatigued enough that they made a decision, and with all these patterns, it knows how the data has got feelings associated to it through this, and metrics will allow it to analyze human qualities like this to negate whether it uses that or not. And this could be like applied in like code reviews and other stuff.
yeah,
Like anger is a good tool.
go on,
So anger is where like it's usually a negative emotion that people usually say, but anger is where the drive is.
sure,
If you channel it properly, you'll get the drive. And that is pretty much impacted with all the things that we are doing.
interesting,
Like if you take actions, it might have been associated with anger as a core emotion. And
sure.
I'm pretty sure in the future, AI could decipher that. And that data is associated with a person who was in an angry state that landed to this decision, and that's my box.
Sure.
And with
I,
this, yeah,
I frame it slightly differently. I probably frame
hmm
it more as resistance than anger necessarily. So
hmm
resistance is two different
yeah, yeah,
things, right? Resistance, one is, and again, like, let's say you have a tool, let's say it's something like Teams, right? And it's, say it's a clunky tool that's hard to use. There's an element of resistance there. There are people who will resist trying to use it. It kind of highlights a need, a human need. So this could be anything. Like we had resistance because it was difficult to go and plow fields ourselves. So we came up with tools, mechanical tools to help us plow fields, right? So resistance is a really powerful indicator of where development, where technology needs to develop, where there's a gap in human need, right? The other aspect is if that need and that resistance is felt strongly enough, like you're saying, it can be a powerful motivator to say, hey, I need to fulfill this need. So resistance is a really powerful measurement tool for the direction in which we progress. I guess in the same way, the counter argument is, can an AI agent really understand that? For example, if you and I are writing in a code base and I write something that is wholeheartedly overcomplicated and you're trying to use that object class, whatever it is, right? And you're like, this interface sucks. This is really painful to use. You suddenly have all this motivation to go and refactor that and make it a little bit easier, right? I don't think that coding agents, for example, feel that level of resistance in any of this. So would
Should
they
it?
actually optimize towards simplifying and improving those systems? Or is what a coding agent sees as simpler and easier going to influence how code goes in the future versus something else? Now, I know I'm
I
talking at
think
the
I think the
abstraction of
I think the
code.
latter part. I think the latter part because the resistance is again like a human emotion, and I don't think that the AI agent needs to feel that or use that as a motivator in terms of deriving a result.
So
It can,
do you think then that the abstraction of a coding agent becomes the new abstract where humans are more concerned about how the coding agent works and less about the code that the coding agent produces?
essentially one level up. Humans need to worry about what results that they want rather than what and how a coding agent performs.
Yeah.
Uh,
And how,
um,
yeah,
it
exactly.
might not be in that level at this moment as we are having this conversation, but as
Sure,
things
because
mature, as
at the moment
tools
we're
get matured,
seeing,
yeah.
I agree with you. We're seeing two things right now. One thing is that there is still a lot of companies that rely on people writing code and maintaining code specifically. The AI agent systems are just not quite there yet that we can just hand off everything and work in this beautiful layer of abstraction yet, right? It is improving. I don't know whether it'll get to that point, but it might. The other point that's holding us back on that is the sheer cost of doing that. Now we're seeing more and more reports of companies AI coding agent expense go through the roof. I think IBM had something like this in the news recently. Um, so I wonder if like as that cost actually becomes more realistic, yeah, you're right. It would tend towards that. Let's say you're in a company and you've got a particular need that you need to fill. Like you've got a workflow, you've got something that you need to automate or just make a bit simpler because you've detected that this is a pain point for your company. It might be a
Hmm.
billing system, it might be something that you're using to generate and maintain content, for example, right? Um, do you build or do you buy? Is the ability to build your own tooling, custom tooling, has gotten a
Yeah,
lot more democratized. So it's making that build scenario a lot more.
viable.
It, I think there's like a semi angel devil take here for this one. In the past, the best tools for a job were built by the people that actually needed it, right? If you
Hmm.
look at some of the most amazing software for managing masses of data, like video content data, right? It was built by some of the companies in the film industry. Like you look at some of the software stacks that companies like Weta FX out of New Zealand or ILM, they're the guys that worked on like Jurassic Park and some of the greatest
Hmm.
movies ever. You look at some of these special effects companies, they have built systems and tools that they needed, bespoke tools. ILM has done some of the most incredible 3D scanning technologies known to mankind, right? Um, so they on that build versus buy trade off. There's no way that they could have bought something better, and they had to build something to such a level of perfection that it satisfied their needs. Now they're in a very, let's say, a very motivated industry to build the tools to perfection, right? But let's say you're in just like any old business today. There are so many businesses today, right? Let's say you're in like an applicant tracking software kind of system, right? Um, how often is a company going to build their own application tracking system versus buy something off the shelf? Is that something people are going to be more tempted to do, right? We're talking like there's so much talk about the death of SaaS. SaaS is going to die, right? Is it just that I'm going to build something that's bespoke to me, does what I need it to, right? Uh,
Hmm.
and is it actually going to live up to something that's off the shelf, right? Or is it that the things off the shelf are so generalized that they're actually not very good, and we actually need to build that
Yeah,
bespoke tooling?
yeah. I think there are two things that comes into play, like on how battle hardened that particular product or software is, and that could be like even like a build software locally within your company that has been tested to the nth degree. And now, like the only way that you could test a particular piece of software is by actually testing that product.
Yes.
And that testing can be done by agents now. Like you can have builders who build it and testing agents who could test it.
For the longest time, testing in UI was the problem, right? Now
Yeah.
Playwright MCP. Now, I don't know anything about front end, but from what I hear, people are using Playwright MCP as a way of getting an agent to be able to test a front end UI in a more automated manner. So we're
Hmm.
getting
Yeah.
there, and we're improving the way in which we test things at a more user behavior level. So that is good.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's accelerating not only building, but it's also accelerating about testing frameworks. And it's
Mm.
about the cost and the scale and timing to which to build and also to build a production ready and like a platform or a product.
So do you reckon that there's a world in which building becomes a more obvious choice, where you build first?
I think it started with the advent of agents. I think that wave has already started, and I'm pretty sure that it'll not end. Where we start, uh, where we end up buying products is essentially all the big players. I personally feel that all the middle players would start vanishing.
Sure, sure. So, like for example, like rewind say 15 years, right? The SaaS explosion that we had, it was that people could not build to the level that they wanted to, so they relied on buying common software that worked really well across different companies to solve the same problem over and over again. And none of the companies were 100% happy with it, right? Like you take any software, whether it's like the G Suite, or you take like Microsoft Suite, or you take anything else, right? You give it to any team, and half the people will say, "Yeah, this is great. I love Google Suite." The other half going to say, "Ah, I wish we were using Microsoft Suite," right? Like you're always going to get that, and then you're going to get people that are like, "Oh, I want Dropbox and PaperDoc and whatever else," right? There's always going to be that variability.
About like certain features that each one of them did, and they didn't have it on the other. Whereas now you can build everything that you want in one place rather than you depending on a big bloated software or a product suite.
Yes, but so there's going to be an access limit to this, right? Like the access limit is, can we pay for the agents to build and maintain this? Can we
Mhm.
pay for the people who know how to use agents to build and maintain this?
I mean, I'm disregarding all of that.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm just saying that you have like infinite capacity to do whatever you want.
Sure. If you direct your
I'm not,
funds correct.
yeah, I think this is where we are generally leaning
Sure.
towards.
Sure. So assuming that funding is all like
Mm.
possible, if we direct our funds in the right way, a company could very conceivably very conceivably build whatever systems it needs rather than buying it.
Yep.
I do agree. I think there's also a threat aspect to this, though, right? Like now it becomes, do I build versus buy because I want to build something that's bespoke to what we need and our exact needs? Yes, I can afford that. But then there's a human cost to this, right? Is I know, for example, you and I know how to use Jira quite well. We have to learn linear, sure. But there's likely, once I've learned linear, I can go to any other company that uses linear, and suddenly my ramp on time is significantly faster, because now I have that extra skill. It's the same thing as if, like, with a programming language, if you know Python and I'm running a Python shop, you come over. I don't need you to learn Python from scratch. I just need you to learn what the tools and systems do, right? If I'm using, say, Ray pipelines or Kubeflow pipelines directly, uh, you can come on board. If you've used
Yep.
Kubeflow and Ray before, you're perfectly fine. But if I've hand-rolled my own kind of way of doing parallelized compute around it, you would have to learn that from scratch, and you can see that ramp on time slowing, right? So there's going to be this trade-off between how useful is it to build my own tools because it is cheaper and better and more effective,
Mm. Yep.
versus it takes me longer to onboard someone onto my tools
Yeah. Yeah.
than
Yeah.
tools that
That's
already
that's sort
exist.
of like that's sort of like the immediate concern. I generally agree. Like I'm not sure how immediate it is, like five years maybe. But if you have agents who have started becoming system architects,
Yes.
system administration, all the problems would start vanishing because you know the interfaces where they are. They can immediately transfer to whatever software you need. Migration is like one of the most costliest things that the business
Yes.
could do,
Yes.
and
And I mean,
this
that's
can
also
do it instantly.
incentivized to be that way, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah,
companies
exactly.
are incentivized to not let you migrate off their platform. There's this whole stickiness
Yep.
of software. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. And all of that would start vanishing if we start not depending on the global players
yeah,
for like
interesting.
for minimal tasks like
Interesting.
project management doesn't have to depend on Jira or like Asana or whatever. Like you can if you have the capacity, you can host it in your place.
Oh, you can, yeah, you can have a
Yeah,
shared spreadsheet if you want, right? Now
yeah.
imagine a
That's
world where you,
rudimentary.
because right now I can go into Google Sheets, and I do this when I'm working with not for profits, right? We just set up
Hmm.
a Google Sheet, and we say tasks assigned to this person when they're done by, and we just log it like that. Like, or I use for my personal stuff, I use Notion. Notion,
Hmm.
you set up task database, and you can look at that as like a work in progress board. You can
Yeah,
create whatever kind of swim lanes and stuff you want, right? Now, imagine if you had an agent that would manage that and help us essentially figure out specifically what actions and tasks need to be done.
yeah.
Um,
It'll definitely accelerate you.
yeah, yeah. No, I do agree.
Yeah.
There's this potentially golden opportunity where bespoke software can attack the moat of existing large SaaS businesses, right?
Hmm.
Like you
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I, as independent developers, can sometimes have a potential advantage in being able to move fast and make bespoke things for small companies that maybe don't have the capital to invest in a whole team, right? But
yeah.
they, and we see this, we saw this with WordPress and web development, right? Like we
Hmm.
had companies had their own web development team in house, and they struggled to maintain good websites with simple things like shops and stuff like that. They then just went and outsourced it to WordPress, companies that would run uh, your website for you, create your website for you, and give you portals in which you can update content. We had third party, like independent contractors that could then use WordPress, WordPress, Squarespace, et cetera, to build you your own website, and they'll manage your website for you. And that kind of has made that process very simple for companies to do on their own without needing to learn a whole bunch of web development skills. I wonder what other gaps and needs that individual companies have, right? Let's say I'm running a business that does, say, property development, right? Like I'm a property developer. I buy land. Uh, I have to subdivide land. I have to go through all the titling processes. I've got to work with constructors. I've got to work with clients that want to build and buy on that land. What other parts of that system? Now, I have no expertise in building a website. I have no expertise in necessarily the project management of construction and things like that. Can I go and talk to a construction company? Can I go and talk to tradespeople, right? And automate some of their flows within there as a software like developer, essentially, right? Can I
Yeah.
solve problems in there that are bespoke to how they want to do things? And I'm able to manage that and pivot specifically to that business. So they're not necessarily building that capability themselves.
That's the good part, right? Like
Mm.
you have distinct. This circles back to the one reality versus multiple realities conversation, I guess.
Yeah,
Like they have their own realities in terms of what businesses they are doing and other stuff. But those are all like multiple distinct realities within themselves. And
sure,
in our case, our reality is our understanding about AI systems and how we bring certain stuff. That's our mode and how we drive stuff. And we, the discoverability factor about such businesses even approaching us in the future would be through mechanisms like recommendations and whatnot.
sure, sure.
Because that has been missing. Like, how do I find you if I'm running a
Yeah,
carpentry business?
yeah, yeah.
Like, like there are freelancing websites that I can post on. There are different websites, but I feel that like there will be tools that will be enhanced.
Goes along that direction that we're seeing 30 years ago. You talk to even like our parents' generation, right? The
Mhm.
likelihood of them being at one company for their entire career is extremely high, right? And it's just not as much of the reality anymore, sadly.
Yeah,
Like, I mean, for me, I find that kind of sad. I kind of liked that environment and still do. But, and
yeah,
I see the benefits to that from like a learning and growing with other people around you, right? Like,
I don't see any other way that like we know how it was done, and that's our system or school of thought in terms of how we gain experience, how we um, learn essentially
yeah.
professionally.
So
But I'm not
so
sure like how in the future things would change
yeah,
when you're isolated.
correct. Like, we're seeing that move towards shorter. Like, we already have shorter, lifetimes at companies already, right?
Hmm.
Um, uh, you're
Yeah,
seeing shorter tenures by a long shot, and companies want that sometimes, and people want that as well
yeah.
sometimes. And now we're going more into this whole gig economy in a sense of more contracting, more bespoke contracts, stuff like that that you were discussing earlier. But this is my concern with that is when there is so much nuance and so much more variability, how do we know that software is actually getting better? And now this isn't just software, right? Like
Any skill. Yeah.
any skill, right? Content creation, right? You go become a social media marketer. How, like, that content, right? Let's say you're a graphics artist, right? How
Hmm.
to improve your graphics art.
Yeah.
How do you learn that without spending a significant portion of time with a specific team doing a specific thing? It's
We
like that 10,000
we have
things.
been yeah it's about this again like we have been so used to certain things and I'm not sure if that is like take 2 or 3 generations from now even our kids or grandsons not sure if they might even look at us and question us why we were like practicing so much on a certain tool and wasting so much of our time to becoming masters of such a tool to do such a rudimentary task.
Right.
That might very well be their thought angle behind this. Like
Sure.
even now,
Sure.
I didn't know anything about editing. I
Yes.
didn't go to a professional school or whatever. But with the help of AI, I learned the basics of it,
Mm.
right? At least the basics of it. I'm not a master of it, anyways. But what I'm trying to say is like we are still at this level where I'm trying to master it, where I'm trying to practice it, to try to understand on how to do it.
Yep.
But I'm saying that that's gonna vanish. You don't have to essentially know
Yes.
a certain skill to perform an action.
And that's kind of exciting as well in some ways, right? Like, so I spent an inordinate amount of time with audio equipment and learning how to like mix and learning how
Hmm.
to edit audio after the fact. I'm by no means an expert in it because I never did it as my day job. I know people who did that 24/7 and they are incredible, but I'm uh, I'm above average in terms of how I assess audio signals and things like that. But that's entirely disappearing, right?
Hmm.
Even like color grading, for example, right? Like I started using DaVinci Resolve in like 2017, right?
Hmm.
And I would sit down with the color grading tools. I did a course on color grading and lighting, and I was like, okay, how does each of these levers work? And to be honest, after a certain point, you just hit the auto grade tool and move on, right?
Yeah.
Like, and we're starting to see tools like that in the audio industry as well, right? You're
Yeah.
seeing
Yeah.
you're seeing lots being sent out for photography. You're seeing similar things like presets, loads of presets within your audio tool chain kind of thing. Um, so that will, I think, expand to other areas, right? It's mainly been something that people have optimized in the creative industry, but like, imagine if we did that with project management, right? Like just blue sky here. What if there was a auto manage this project for me saying, this is where I want to go. This is how much time and money I have. This is the number of people I have. How do I divide and conquer this problem? Because that's the biggest problem in project management is how do
Yep.
you and I decide, hey, this is where we draw the line. This bit I'm doing, this bit you're doing.
Flavor. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's been like we've seen overcomplicated methodologies, we've seen hyper simplified methodologies, we've seen nothing really work and all things work in a
Hmm.
suboptimal way. So I'm very curious whether some of these principles,
Like yeah, yeah,
right,
no, 100%. Like
how do they change?
we are still talking about intersection of AI and humans. If we say AI starts architecting AIs, none of this would be like even a problem.
You don't think so? Doesn't
AI
it come down to
architect,
the doesn't it come down to the substrate of what we're actually like coordinating? Like let's remove AI from the
no, I
picture for a
mean,
second, right?
let's remove humans out of the picture. AI
Okay.
architecting AIs,
Yeah.
I don't see that'll be a problem. When AI architects AIs plus human, I'd see there is a problem because when you have multiple systems,
Yeah.
independent systems coming into fray,
More of a hive mind capability.
yeah, like consider this, right? We're all, let's go to that echo chamber conversation that we had.
Yes.
We all have an accustomed to be part of an echo chamber and getting used to about how that works.
Mm.
Imagine you have different cultural ethnicity uh, individuals who join a team.
Mm.
You'll suddenly need to be very broad-minded. You suddenly need to know about what they are thinking and
Yeah.
how you need to facilitate and make them like
Even
accustomed to,
communication styles. How do you
yeah,
communicate
even communication
feedback?
styles. Yeah, exactly. Like it's not like one norm that everyone needs to land on.
Sure.
You'll suddenly need to like account for everything.
Sure.
And
Sure. Like
this
even
is
like
what we
how
are facing.
even how you communicate respect, right? Like in Australian
Yeah,
work culture, it's very normal to use first name basis.
yep,
In other countries, that is,
frowned
you wouldn't
upon.
call your boss by their first name, right? Like it
Yeah,
varies a lot. So I see what you mean. It melts away the human aspect. I agree. Like either system, like if it's all humans or all AIs, will be simpler than managing a hybrid system.
yep. But
But
with what
my
how it's evolving is anything that like disregard robots now. Like I'm trying to
mm,
decouple as many things as possible.
yeah,
As long as robots are not there and we have fully AI systems, we all the physical things um, that AI will need to do, that's the handshake. And anything towards AI will be done by AI. And we
sure.
can go to the system architects level now, where you have all the things automated and only human level things that needs to be done by human, and higher level stuff where we are running businesses.
Hmm. I, yes, but I think there is one more layer to this, right? And we only see it when we eliminate AI from the system for a second, right?
Hmm.
Let's ignore AI managing projects. Let's think about project management specifically, right? It's the biggest pain for any company is delivering
Yeah.
something long term. Now, collaboration and dividing and conquering a problem, right, is again one of those inherent baseline problems of any company that's doing anything of complex manufacturing requirements. It has to do with the people and the behaviors and the natures of the things that are doing the collaboration. But ignoring that, it also has a baseline substrate that impacts it, right? Now, software, for example, it's a lot easier for you and I to collaborate on a software design than on a mechanical hardware design. Let's say we're building a robot together, right? It's much harder for us to manage the same CAD files, right? And you might make a slight change to a CAD system, and I might make a slight change to a CAD system. And yes, all these CAD companies have invested heavily in tools that work for that, right? Like I know SolidWorks, they're trying to do something with like a shared database that's kind
Hmm.
of like a Git for hardware. I know Siemens NX CAD, they have probably one of the better ones that I've seen at a like I've seen it used in a production scenario where you would be able to essentially check out a document, update the CAD model, and I get to see glimpses of it as you're building, but I don't get to modify that because you have a lock on it, right?
Yeah.
Um, but the substrate of that is very different to say software, where not only
Yeah.
can I see your changes, I can also modify at the same time. And we
Hmm.
can differentiate. We've built systems that diff software. Diffing
Yeah.
software is much easier than diffing CAD models, right? Um,
Yep.
so I think there is an element where the substrate really matters, whether it's AI driven or not, right?
So I think the true progress is not about like having shared reality in first place, as we started the conversation about. I think the power is essentially about incentivizing and enabling all and every one of us to striving at the reality that we have. And I feel that we have got a good conclusion from this particular conversation about how individual realities influence us in terms of shaping the wider narrative of a broad shared reality.
I think there is the long term impacts of seeing more nuance, more variety, more, I guess, more independent realities in a
Hmm.
sense. Um, but at the same time, that might
Shaping
actually
for
be a good
a
thing.
yeah, shaping for a broader, more truthful shared reality rather than incentivized and propaganda-based shared reality.
Yeah, yeah. I think I like the concept that you even started off with is that a shared reality doesn't need to be a singular reality,
Yes,
and that's
yeah.
what we're coming to.
Hmm. Cool. It's a good conversation and loved every bit of it.
Awesome, as always, man.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks a lot.